Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining another session. We are here today with Fred, the investor, and it's another popular topic that we'll be touching on today, which is the small cap called, or the penny stock called Avenge. And there's been a massive hype around that lately on social media. And Fred, so previously we've had Rochelle and Simon Brown who touched a bit on Avenge, but more on the bearish side. So today we're going to hear Fred's opinion and his overview of Avenge and his reasoning, as he's a bit more bullish. So yeah, thanks for joining, Fred. So if you can just take us through what is Avenge in a short overview, and then we'll look at bullish or bearish, and then the final opinion. So the what you'll be doing. So yeah, what is Avenge?
So, I mean, Avenge is basically, started off as a construction company. They are now engaged in international infrastructure and resource development. So that's different things like they engage in minerals and gas. Yeah, that's pretty much a summary of Avenge, but they deal with natural resources.
So on the next points of bullish versus bearish,
Yeah.
before we touch on that, what excites you the most about Avenge? So I know they've got products or not products, pipelines and developments going on, but what excites you the most? What is the reason that it's attracting you so much?
Cool. So just to give some context to this, Avenge really caught my attention, I'd say about 5 months ago. Funny enough, it was on a Twitter space actually with my regular friends that I normally, engage with on Twitter. And yeah, we're just in the space discussing, and he brought it to my attention that, hey, listen, man, here's Avenge. This is what they do, and this is the share price. So I then took it on my honors to then go and do some, deeper research. And for about a month, I was literally just researching every week. And so to answer your question, honestly, I think for me, what's really stood out is, yes, one, primarily their story from when they had started as a company, which is quite a long ago in the 19, I mean, yeah, in the 1800s, if I'm correct. But most recently, around about 2005, 2008, moving into 2010, up until today. Number one point is the restructure plan, which they implemented I think they started implementing that in 2017, right? So obviously, if you do have some prior knowledge of Avenge, you'll know that they had, prior to the restructuring plan, they had a lot of risky project, poor capital allocation, and they also really poor operating performance, right, which led to them having high levels of debt, right, which still, I mean, they still have debt today, but it's much, much less than they had, for example, 10 years ago. So that all forced the company to have a whole managerial restructure, right? So a lot of the management team that you'll find there now weren't there 10 years ago. So they had a whole restructuring plan of that. And most importantly for me, what stood out is the restructure plan, which they implemented in around about 2017. Okay. So that is the first point. So when I was researching, that caught my eye. And so again, it then brought me to ask myself, okay, if this is the plan, is it actually working, right? So I had to dig deeper and look at the financials, right? Now, Avenge does have a lot of debt, okay? They have been making quite a lot of losses as well. But what you'll note is from that period is that the debt and the losses have been decreasing, okay? So that is really, for me, fundamentally what stood out. Also because, I mean, Avenge is one of the big players in the industry, right? They've just been obviously going through a bad patch, but they are one of the few construction companies that have withstood quite a lot of difficult times, if you can put it like that. Hello.
Um,
Cool.
yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
Sorry.
one of the things that can probably um, counter as a bullish argument is the fact that government spending will maybe increase on infrastructure, because it's obviously a great way to kickstart the economy, and we know all the economies across the world has been taken quite a hit. So maybe it's a great way for the government to just increase government spending, and maybe Avenge will benefit from that. So that's definitely one thing that can happen. Can you take us through Avenge's footprint? Are they global, and what are some of the exciting developments that are going on, if so?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so they've got quite a few developments. They have divisions in Africa, also locally South Africa. They've also got a division in Australia and Asia, right? And the Australia division actually is the one that when I looked at recently their performance, they have been bringing in the most, I would say, revenue out of all the divisions from Africa, Asia, yeah, including Australia as well and South Africa. And yeah, so they now have a wide footprint in those areas, which I don't think, I would say, 20 years ago, that was the case, basically, right? So the interesting thing about the Australian division as well is that for the first time last year, it actually had a net profit for the year since 2014, right? So again, I will refer back to the whole restructuring plan, right? So since 2014, that division was operating at a net loss, and most recently had a net profit. Okay, now that is major in terms of if you're looking at the financials. Again, like if you know, a business fundamental sole purpose is to make money. So for me, if a business is not making money, cool, then I do flag them as, I would flag them as a red flag. And again, I am flagging Avenge as a red flag, but that is not primarily my reason for being bullish on them. Okay. So yes, to answer your question, they've got divisions in Australia, they've got divisions in Asia and other parts of Africa, and most recently, the division in Australia actually has won a major contract with the Australian government, right? So there's a lot of, I would say, positive things starting to happen for Avenge.
Yeah, cool. So, you are more bullish. Just before we go on, just for everyone watching, this is not financial advice. We're just looking at Avenge, sharing opinions, and looking at the bullish versus bearish. So today is bullish. If you want to hear a bit the bearish side, you can have a look at the previous videos. So just back onto this, even as a bullish investor in Avenge, so you are invested in Avenge, if I'm not mistaken. What are some of the risks that you would want to see them address, and then after that we'll get into the final opinion.
So basically, really, I think for me it's the current performance. So obviously, the major risk is that Avenge has a lot of debt, and not to say that debt is bad. There is actually good debt. A lot of companies actually utilize debt in order to expand, right? But the issue here with Avenge is that they've got bad debt, meaning this is debt they can't actually afford to maybe use to expand the business or to start a new division, which would ultimately give them more profit, right? So they have been on a plan to try and pay that debt off, which will allow them to have more cash on hand, which they can then use for other more productive, reasons, right? So the one primary reason, the thing that I'm paying close attention to is the debt. Are they paying off the debt? Because as we speak right now, they have made a promise to pay all the debt off by 2024. Right, so everything should be paid off by then. I'm just waiting on the year-end result, which comes out on the 31st of this month. So that's in like 11 days. Then we will know, for example, how much debt was paid off this year, right? And it'll give you an indication of whether they are on track to then pay off the remaining of debt. The second point on it, I think, for me, is the cash on hand. I want to be able to see as an investor, okay, how much cash in hand are you guys actually, do you guys have? Is it more than the previous year? Because obviously once, I mean, you can have debt as well. There's a lot of companies that have debt, but there's also, even though they have debt, they also have cash in hand to work with, right? And that will allow for more productivity within the company. So yeah, to be honest with you, I think the main reason is the debt. And it has been showing positive signs. Again, the revenues have been improving, the net profit has been improving, but if the debt seems to take a hit, then yeah, there will probably be another red flag for me. But yeah, that's really the only reason. I don't have any other red flag, because I mean everything else that they are currently doing, right? If you're comparing the past, cool. I will understand that a lot of people are bearish, which is understandable, right? But again, why do people invest? Do you invest in a company based on their past, or do you invest because you actually believe that in the future this company is going to perform well, right? Hence, your the value of your money will also grow as they perform well moving in the future, right? So everything that they are currently doing now, right, based on the situation they are in, only has positive, I mean, only really turns to positive things. Yeah.
Awesome, yeah. So before we get to your final stock pick, so for those who don't know Avenge, it is a penny stock. You can go check it out. The share price is currently around 5 to 6 cents, so it's really just a few cents a share. And it's there's a lot of different opinions, so you have to do your own research and then go back to your original gut. So just looking at some of the highlights from this session with Fred. First of all, there's a turnaround going on. Second of all, they have a long history and they have shown some resilience throughout the previous years. They have a lot of debt and they've shown some losses, which could be a little bit of a red flag, but they've committed to pay off debt before 2024. There is a new team in the past few years, so there is a restructuring plan also going on. They have global operations, so they are geographically diversified. A lot of good things happening in their Australian business. So overall, there are some positive signs. So that is the bullish
Yeah.
aspect. So any last words that you want to add onto that and your final opinion? So
Okay, so
are you buying Avenge stock? Is it
I just want to add some more context to it. I mean, a lot of people probably have seen my viewpoints, because I did write a thread about it as well. But also, just to give some more context, as someone who's bullish, we have in Avenge, for those who don't know, there are some big players who are invested in the company, right? If it was, because I know the general sentiment is, they're currently in a bad position. Yes, that is very true. As we speak right now, for someone that's, trying to be very, I would say, conservative with the investment decision, I wouldn't suggest you invest in Avenge, right? Um, for me personally, the money that I put in there, I could still survive without it, So that's the logic here behind it. So I just want to make sure I clear that out. But now there are some big players invested in Avenge, right? So we have companies like JP Morgan that are investing in Avenge. You have APSA, you have Stein Capital Management, etc. Right? Also, coming to the market cap, right? So Avenge market cap is at 3.7 billion rand. Now, that is a small cap, right? That's considered as a small cap, and so it might seem that it's actually not well known by institutional investors. Would you agree?
well, the fact that those JP Morgan and those companies started climbing in is probably a bit of a institutional interest that's rising.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And really, that's also was what one thing that caught me, right? Because personally, for me, I think I personally think that institutional investors, right, commonly compare their own their own returns, right, to the returns of a commonly followed index. So they always they try and play it safe, if I can put it like that, right? Because I mean, it's an institution. Why would you really want to put your money in something that it has really high risk, right? And no future upside or potential. So In my research, actually, if you actually go into some research, you'll note that the institutional ownership in Avenge accounts for more than 53%. So in terms of ownership, there are 53% of Avenge are owned by institutions, right? Now that to me, right, personally to me, suggests some credibility amongst institutions. Okay, professional investors, if I can put it in that sense. Again, also on my research, you'll note that when you actually research analysts' opinions, right? So these are professional people. I'm not people like myself or guys from Twitter. When you actually search guys who love this, like top analysts, they have valued Aventure's fair value at around 63 cents. Okay, so currently as we speak, Avenge is at 6 cents, so it's approximately 90% undervalued. Okay, so that is what my research has, what I've been able to research, and yeah, my final words really is for those that are considering, Avenge and have been keeping them on the watch list, what you really want to start paying close attention to moving forward as they release the interim results, as they release the yearly results, is really just to pay close attention to the ROI, whether the ROE, sorry, whether the ROE is increasing. You also want to pay attention to the debt, whether the debt is also decreasing. You want to pay attention to the PE ratio. The PE ratio should also increase, right? So every 6 months or every year, check the PE ratio. If it's increasing, then that shows positive signs. And last but not least, you want to check the earnings per share. That should also show signs of improvement, meaning it should be increasing. Yeah, that's just my final words. And thank you for having me on here, Hugo.
Yeah, awesome. That's a lot of knowledge. And so just one thing that you said earlier, it's probably not for very conservative investors, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the money you've invested is money that, if you lose it, you'd survive. So
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, guys. Please don't. I'm 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 pretty young. I don't have much responsibilities. I don't have children. I work as well, so I take a lot of big risks when it comes to my investment, right? So this is from a guy that the investment that I have in Avenge, with if it crashes tomorrow, the company goes like completely bankrupt, I will still move on with life completely fine, right? So just
yeah,
before you make that decision, be sure that you're wanting to get involved in a company that's in such a state, right? Which we have covered briefly in here today.
so there's that disclaimer. And yeah, well, so we've had bearish videos now. We've had bullish videos. If you found this useful, let us know in the comments. Are you bullish or bearish on Avenge for those watching? So we've had these different opinions. So there's a lot of content and valuable information for you to work with. Thank you, Fred, for all this informational content that you shared with us and research. I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Cheers.
Thank you, Hugo. Have a wonderful one. Thank you for having me on here.
Cheers.
Cheers.